So we were talking about culture and how important this is, and the restrictions is. Let's get back to that data place, right? Because technically, I have the experience that nothing works without data, and especially not without semantic data, because you need the understanding of the data with the data. But how does this translate to the business world? Like, I feel like I can say this. A C-level guy will say, yeah, sure, go away. And then the programmers say, but I have data in my SQL database. Say, well, but you have a lot of it. Like, how do we get this translated? Because those are the prerequisites of using AI properly.
No, but I think you have to break it down, unfortunately or fortunately, either way, into clear scenarios. So if it's literally almost in front office scenario, where it's almost an agent is doing customer support, is it doing, if you think about optimizing a process like source to procure, there's always about process swimming lanes and almost the optimal process, and everything is really well structured because standard operating procedure demands almost as one workflow. If you go to the other extreme, if you run IT, you think back to telemetry data, all these operational data points. So again, I don't think there's one answer to it. So, but if you almost stick with the big transformational change, probably, and I think also if you think through some of where the innovation, including Agentic AI, will come to the fore, it's probably the big business processes. And with that, that's a significant change, because in the past, you're quite happy just to include incremental set of data around a specific document or anything else. If your ambition, however, is to progress to end-to-end automation, then your suggestion of your semantic data graph comes to the fore, because you have to understand so much more. So again, you have to be very clear on the context. So it's literally, which scenario we'll be talking about, but then also the scope of the requirement. So if it's just small, employee-driven, or some of small requirement, like just optimize something, the data requirements are so much less than almost you're trying to literally optimize or even automate the whole process. So it's context and scope, I would argue. We have to almost be very clear about.
This is all very interesting, because in our internet, we have a Confluence, right? Internet, and the most frequented tech page is the page called It's All About Context, right? Where semantic principles are explained and so on. Maybe I should share that with you sometime.
Yeah, but it's a simple, if you look out, if you listen to the marketing on Agentic, allegedly agents understand context. What they do is, if the scope is very narrow,
it's because they're super.
It's a booking, an airline system, just about they might get it.
That's the context.
Exactly. But if it's about literally you're trying to manage an end-to-end process, and not everything is standardized, so then you have to think very differently. And exactly some of the
this reminds me of the old Hoover robots, right? That couldn't find their way through the room. Right. Now you put an agent for booking airlines on Amazon.com, and it'll try to find us. Where do I put in the destination? Where do I put in the destination?
Exactly.
Technically these things don't understand anything, right?
Exactly.
Or do I have to? Okay, this is all very interesting. And on the agent part, this is the new stuff. Basically, is that how we rephrase the use case conundrum? Everything has to have a specific use case. Like, how do you have specific strategies? How do you get clients? You're an analyst. You're supposed to explain the world to clients, right? Or me is wishful thinking, right? But it's how do we get people to have strategies again, and out of those strategies to know what they need technology to do for them?
I think it's a tough one. But
they're like in front of a television. They go to a meeting and say, tell me what you can do for me. I don't have a clue what you're doing. I have a technology, right? But how do we get people to actually demand stuff of technology? Go fix this problem.
No, I think, again, you have to demonstrate the outcome. So if you demonstrate the outcome, technology can do complex problem solving for you. That's what you're demanding. If you just hear, and I think we are the phase with Agentic at least, I think, again, there's so much misinformation or lack of understanding, how much agency, so literally what's the the automation levels or the scope in terms of the autonomy level is. So again, it's not the answer. You don't have if your processes are not well designed, if you don't have the right data to describe, on the lowest level, even understand your customers, or even on a much higher level, describing some of process change.
Tom, excuse me for interrupting you. This is really burning on my soul. Is if I am an AI company and a data company, and I can produce an outcome that is of great impact and value to any kind of business, why the hell would I sell it to that business instead of raising money and putting that business out of business? Because my valuation as an AI company, if I have a demonstrable outcome in a specific industry, is much higher than his.
No, absolutely. And I think
that's stupid of these guys.
Yeah, but again, this comes back to what I said. I think in earlier discussion, it comes down to reimagining almost even your business model. If you're seeing through that technology that you can fundamentally run a business, and sometimes it's by pure chance, you're figuring out, hey, there's a completely different business opportunity which might be much more valuable than anything we have done before. Exactly that. So it comes down to some of the willingness and ability to reimagine business models.
It's also the willingness of having a desire or a demand, right? It's like, if Henry Ford had not had the willingness to put these cars out there, we would have faster horses now. Probably. Maybe much nicer because the horses actually.
I think the analogy almost gets to me. Some of saying it's just like the last secular shift. Some of you still want horses, but again, it's even that is still the business. The business is transport, so I get that. But I think it's still not really explaining the big shift we're doing with AI, because it's really a fundamentally different way of working. It's not just optimizing things with a more different engine or more horsepower, and pun intended on that one. But I think so. It's literally. I think also we have to be much more creative, giving people sense what thinking different really means.
Well, I mean, in the very olden days, right, you had people and they had to be imaginative and innovative and do new things and then do their work while they were doing this. Now we're in an age of industrialization where all we want is execution of predefined work. But we have a huge backlog of innovation, is at least my feeling. And now we're coming to an age of where the machines do the work and we have to do the backlog of innovation. And we don't feel secure with that because we haven't done it for so long. Is that a too philosophical interpretation? Or?
It's an interesting, good point. I think there's different. I think the innovation, how much of this fundamental innovation it's done in an organization like a bank, I'm not sure that level of innovation is there. It's probably happening somewhere else. It's a company probably purposefully set up to drive that, I think.
But you have these neobanks, right? The neobanks basically rebuilt a bank with an account, with investments, with all these different systems, and they run at a rate I don't even think anywhere comparable to a bank, to a classical bank.
Of course, but I think why are they able to do that? Because they're not sitting on technology, process, and cultural debt. It's a fundamentally different complexity than almost even a traditional bank. You sit on all the old.
Is that all the old skunk works? You get the people to invent, and then you transfer all the accounts to the neobank.
So I think for me, that's almost is the same. When we see all the some of demos for AI, others. If you have literally a digital native or even AI startup, that's not the right context to drive the ability or to try to explain the ability, because if your technology can deal with all the APIs, is reasonably stable, that's not a challenge. The challenge typically always comes with technology debt. And I think that's always, for me, the context in which we should largely describe innovation, because, again, it's not saying what we can do with this technology. It's not in an ideal scenario, be a greenfield or an organization set on very advanced set of technologies. It's the other way around. It's public sector, it's a bank, it's an insurance company.
You're making such a great point for semantic data pools, right? Because semantic data pools collect all this data from all these legacy systems and then make them available to cutting-edge system in a way that they can actually process because it's semantic.
Absolutely.
Okay, that actually makes sense to me. Which brings me to an interesting question that I've always wanted to ask you: is we're this little company in Swabia, right? And we have the audacity to compare ourselves to Palantir. Like, how ridiculous does this sound to you as an analyst? And why would you say that maybe it's justified or unjustified?
especially Palantir is a tricky one to navigate because there's many connotations to it. Is it the technology capability? Is it the environment that some of work in, and some of which also give them negative connotations, quite frankly. But if you just stay for a moment with the technology capability, I don't think it's even the size of an organization which curtailed them some of being as good as one of the big organizations. So I think it comes down to the most clarity of vision, but also I think you've been long around. I think if you haven't done AI somewhat with a long time frame, I think almost listening and learning from you, developing also a new set of algorithms, also being willing to almost think in completely different paradigms. I don't think the size is curtailed. On the contrary, I think might be, if anything, might be an accelerator because the bigger you are, the more established you are, the more difficult I think innovation at times becomes. So, but then I think it swings all the other way around. I think as a small organization, you have to be able to cut through the noise, be more nimble, even more nimble than the big established providers out there. So it swings both ways. So I don't think it's for somebody like Almato or Data Group, it's a hindrance being small with focus. I think it's the other way around. How can you get your message across, especially on topics where it's so noisy? AI, I don't recall as much noise as we have at the moment around AI, especially generative and agentic AI. So I think to be relevant to your set of stakeholders, that's for me the challenge. But again, purely from an innovation point of view, almost the scale is not a limitation, in my view.
So we can compare ourselves to Palantir. No,
if you deliver as effectively, by all means.
Well, we do. You've been talking about agentic AI quite a bit. To me, this is just old stuff, right? It's something that we've been doing for a long time. But why are people excited about it now?
That's a very good question. I think on one hand, I'm tempted to think I might be wrong on that, but it's because the way we explained initially generative AI was with consumer use cases, largely. We're happy to write an email or any letter in the style of a sonnet of Shakespeare. It was very accessible. So if you described almost probably in an engineering language an AI problem, most people wouldn't get it, wouldn't resonate. So I think on one hand it was the accessibility, and it was a bit alignment of stars that when ChatGPT landed late in 2022, pretty much every person could relate to it. And that's quite rare, that you can relate to an innovation like that. So I think that's, for me, that's the biggest one.
But that was before agents. That was chat.
No,
right?
It was before agent. And I think we saw it, or many saw it, that's the biggest change we have seen for such a long time. And almost just a year later, the whole flipped. And it's not just almost you put it, almost we use language as a way to interact as a UI, but almost go the next step, think out through some of how can that be extended to complex issues, including different ways of automation. And I think, but even there, I think we started to discuss it, and typically, I don't know why, we're always ending up with booking airline tickets and others, so people again try to use consumer use cases. Because that's a use case everybody can understand, Exactly. But then that doesn't reflect, again, back to the complexity of an organization. If you put more than one agent into your operational environment, if you put it into production, it's a huge complexity. And I think, again, we have to be honest. So I think but the upside, you can see the upside, because in the end, we're going probably back in circles, back to the promise when we started the RPA discussion. Because we started the RPA, we just didn't start about RPA. We talked about your old company, Arago, back in the day. We talked about an organization called Apisoft, virtual engineers. It's all about decoupling routine service delivery from labor arbitrage. So literally, another way, the early way of digital labor can be get to some of high process delivery in automation without human interaction and drive down costs, drive down much more efficient process. And I think we're going back to that one.